Today we wax a doubleheader. The 17's Penthouse and Pavement, and the Human League's Day. Preface. The reason for this doubleheader is for the stories inherent. They are linked in music history, yet they stand independent of each other. Before we wax, we gotta spin the history yarn, and as to not waste any time, let's get to it. Meeting each other and becoming friends in Sheffield, England in the early 70s, teenagers Martin Ware and Ian Craig Marsh, both fans of glam rock, decided to embark upon music together. After purchasing a Korg 700S, an orally affordable synthesizer, they learned the instrument, starting and ending a host of bands, including names like The Dead Daughters and The Future, sometimes working with friend and future Clock DVA member Addie Newton. After the trial and error of different lineups, they began to assemble their team in total. Initially wanting close friend Glenn Gregory to sing, he was not available to perform the duties. With that roadblock, they sought out old friend and then current hospital porter Philip Oakey to sing, based on his charisma and at the time asymmetrical hairstyle. After passing a trial of creating lyrics for an instrumental they created, the trio was solidified, with that composition turning into their first single, Being Boiled. Looking towards a role-playing science fiction board game Star Force Alpha Centauri, they chose the name The Human League. Releasing their debut album Reproduction in 1979, they were on the cusp of the burgeoning new wave synth era. Now joined by sly projectionist and director of visuals Philip Adrian Wright, the band began to play concerts alongside other electronic bands like Cabaret Voltaire, Vice Versa, and others. By 1980's travelogue, the band's inner turmoil was at an all-time high, with tensions building between Ware and Oakey creatively. Also, another thorn in their side was the issue of not having yet achieved the major pop success they had hoped, miffed at another British upstart, Gary Newman, managing to have a hit record with the singles Our Friends Electric and later on with Cars. Although the band did manage to gain traction with their Holiday 80 EP, performing their cover of Gary Glitter's Rock and Roll Part 2 on the TV show Top of the Pops, this did little to resolve matters, with infighting becoming a hassle. Partly engineered by manager Bob Last, a decision was made to fire Martin Ware. Based upon this decision, Ian Craig Marsh decided to leave the band, effectively ending the first formation of the Human League. Understandably angry by this move, Ware, now joined by Ian Craig Marsh, defecting after Ware's firing, were determined more so than ever to get even with the Human League and create the best album they could possibly make. Released September 1981, Penthouse and Pavement is the debut album from British electronic band Heaven 17, produced by the British Electronic Foundation. With the original manifesto of all synths being a thing of the past, the band moved forward creating a synthesis of synthesizers and traditional contemporary instruments. Now available, they recruited longtime friend and original Human Lead singer choice Glenn Gregory to front the band, becoming a trio. Under the guise of the British Electronic Foundation, Ware and Marsh began to craft new tunes not only for use for themselves, but potentially for others. With the trio set, they settled on a name of a fictional band from the novel A Clockwork Orange, Heaven 17. Heaven 17 began working at the same studio that the Human League worked in as a unit. But to add to tension and drive, the Human League were also working there, with one band taking the day shift and the other band taking the night shift. It was during this period that a new musical device arrived to the studio and changed the sound for both bands. Created in 1979, the Lin Electronics LM1 was an 8-bit digital drum machine, the very first commercially available to feature sample sounds of real drums, initially creating drum sounds through the usage of their synthesizers and sequencers, giving it a unique but albeit synthetic sound. The drum machine sped up the recording process while giving them a high-quality modern drum sound. It is notable to say that this drum machine became the drum machine of the era, used by the likes of people like Peter Gabriel, George Benson, Cocktail Twins, M2May, and its most notable user, Prince. This drum machine was heard on countless records before the follow-up drum machine, the Lin drum, became the drum machine of the day. But that's a totally different situation, a totally different story, for a totally different series. Recruiting John Wilson to play bass guitar and guitar, as well as a handful of other session musicians on the record, Heaven 17 crafted material based on a concept based on the times they were in. With the rise of corporate greed and Thatcherism in the face of the working class, they made the material essentially lambasting this motive, although it wasn't always seen that way, as yuppie types almost treated the material as anthem. All things to all people, true art, true pop. Releasing their debut single, We Don't Need This Fascist Groove Thing, in March 1981, the record was banned by the BBC. However, that didn't stop this record from being essentially one of the coolest albums of the year, along with tracks like Penthouse and Pavement, Play to Win, Height of Fighting, and others. The album Penthouse and Pavement would set the stage and musical template for the band for albums to come. Released October 16, 1981, Dare is the third studio album from British electronic band The Human League, produced by The Human League and Martin Rushent. Meanwhile, Phil Oakey and Philip Adrian Wright were left with the Human League name and responsibilities, one of those being a small tour. Needing to form a unit to fulfill the tour, Oakey and Wright began to seek out members. They found musical help with musician Ian Burton and also Wright, who had already begun playing synthesizers during shows, switched from slides to synthesizers in total. The real change would come when Oakey witnessed two teenage girls dancing at a local club, the Crazy Daisy. Digging their style, he asked the two, Suzanne Sully and Joanne Catherall, to be in the band. With permission of their parents and the school system, the unit was set for the 1980 tour. After it was completed, they began work on their follow-up to Travelogue, including new band member, former Rosillo's guitarist, Joe Callis. Initially working out of the same studio as former bandmates, now known as Heaven 17, the tension was on to outdo each other. With seasoned producer Martin Rushent at the helm, the unit recorded the song Sound of the Crowd, and it was released as a single. The single took off and secured them a spot on Top of the Pops. From there, the band moved into Rushent's studio for a more focused and in-depth work environment. The Dare album is an album of technology. It is safe to say that this album couldn't have been created in the way it was created without the technology leading the production. Armed with an arsenal of synthesizers, the Lin LM1 drum machine, and the true star of the production, the Roland MC8 sequencer, this album was cutting-edge synth pop with a capital synth pop! With funky synth new wave workouts like The Things That Dreams Are Made Of and Love Action I Believe in Love, the traditional pop of Open Your Heart, the eerie atmosphere of Darkness, the unique cinematic landscapes of Do or Die in Seconds, and the duet bop of Don't You Want Me, Dare became a pop hallmark, with Don't You Want Me reaching the top of the pop charts Christmas 1981. 1981 would prove to be a vindicating year for both camps, with Penthouse and Pavement winning critical acclaim and Dare being a bona fide commercial success. Both bands would have varied success throughout the decade and beyond, and it's all thanks to an engineered split and the creation of these two groundbreaking records. Double Waxed!